All right, in this video, we're going to go over how to make custom windows using curtain wall families and curtain walls inside of a project. If you're new to Revit, or if you're not new to Revit, but you've just never really used curtain walls, this can be daunting. Curtain walls, until you get used to them, they can they seem confusing. They're not once you learn all the rules, but learning all the rules takes a minute and you're just going to have to experiment with it. But I promise once you understand them, it's not difficult at all. It just seems intimidating. So let's go over that, because the reason I put these in here are because I just feel like if you're paying for our families and you have a case that we haven't covered, I feel bad, because my ultimate goal, the whole reason I started RevFamily.biz, is not to just get you, one-off families that you need, but to truly just know that if you bought our product, you have peace of mind that you have everything you need going forward and you don't have to think about it again. I think that's the greater value we bring. So because I can't think of every scenario you'll ever need, and I can't possibly make every family that you're ever going to need, I do try to make sure to cover 90% of it, and then leave you with some methods still, some tools that you can still use for those other case scenarios that maybe I can't cover, or I would never be able to imagine that you need. So for that, I've created curtain wall windows. So they're very similar to the other windows in the library. It's just they fit inside of these curtain walls. So curtain walls on the commercial side of things, I use them all the time for so many things, but on residential, I found most people don't ever use them. And it's because you don't put true curtain wall in very many residential projects. But curtain wall is a useful tool in Revit for doing things other than actual, real life curtain walls. You can make a lot of other cool things with curtain wall. If you've used our interior finishes family library, you'll see videos there, and we use curtain walls for all sorts of interior trim work. So we're going to take, I'm going to just for this video assume you have not used curtain walls and show you how to make this large custom window assembly using curtain walls. Before I get into it though, let's dissect what's happening here. First of all, a curtain wall is just another type of wall. So if I hit the wall command in Revit, I come over here, I can see the basic walls, and this is just the default template, the 2020 Revit 2020 default template. So I have not made any walls in here. This is just how it comes, like brand spanking new. There's basic walls is a category of walls, and then there's stacked walls, which is another category. And you may be familiar with both of those, but most people have just their brain doesn't even look at the curtain wall. A curtain wall is another category of wall that Revit has built in. So if I click on it and I draw it, it's by default, it's like a pane of glass, like this huge pane of glass. And it has similar constraints and parameters as any other wall. And what you can do with the curtain wall though, is you can put it, let me draw another wall here that is not a curtain wall. Let me do this in plan view here. So here's our curtain wall. I'm going to delete it, and I'm just going to draw a basic wall. And then I'm going to draw a curtain wall, and I'm just going to center it inside of the other wall. And they're overlapping. And when I look at them like this, they're not cutting. So sometimes you can train a curtain wall to cut. If you put it inside of a normal wall, it'll cut it out. But it really depends on what template you're using, and whoever set up your template, this behavior may not be automatic. So if I click on this little curtain wall and I edit the type, you see how it says automatically embed? If I click that, it will automatically cut the big wall with the little wall. And now I just offset it 3 feet from the ground, and then I'll connect it. Let's just do unconnected height of 3 feet. So you can quickly see how this could be helpful in creating windows inside of, like custom windows inside of a wall. It's automatically cutting the wall. You can get the width and height all made up fairly easily. And then what you can do further is divide curtain walls. So now this wall, I can divide it into pieces, which will make panels. So let's reverse this a little bit. We're gonna just keep this curtain wall here, and I'm just gonna go over the basic features of a curtain wall. So if you click the curtain wall, right now it's not obvious, but there's the curtain wall object, which is this whole dotted line. And if I tab select, there's the actual glass panel. And many people don't make this distinction. There's the wall, and then there's the panel. The panel is just what Revit's choosing to fill the wall with at this time, but you can actually change the panel to lots of different things. You can pick another wall type to fill this panel. So let me show you. We need to divide it further, and then I can show you what it does. So here's your curtain wall, and the curtain wall can be divided horizontally or vertically. So what you're going to do is you're going to come up here to architecture, and under the curtain, like in the first build category, there's curtain grid, curtain mullions, curtain system. You're concerned about the curtain grid. You're going to click that, And now it's going to let you add grids to the wall. And if you go along the top or bottom edge, it'll put vertical grids. And if you go against the edges, it'll put horizontal. So let's just divide it like this. And once you've placed those, you can highlight them again. Again, another thing that confuses people about curtain walls is all these different parts and trying to select them can be difficult. So if I hover and see these dotted lines, that's the wall, which is different from tab selecting and getting the panel. Now that we've divided it, you can see there's 6 panels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It used to be 1 panel, but now it's 6. But that is different, that panel is different than the curtain wall itself. So I can select that panel, and I can tab select. It might be hard to see on the computer, but there's a blue dotted line. Let me see an elevation if it's easier for you to see. So if I go to our curtain wall, you can maybe see it a little better in elevation. When I hover over it, you can see that dotted line. If I click it, that is the grid. So now I'm clicking on the grid, and you can move that like that. And we can add another grid if we want. So let's go to architectural grid, and let's add another grid here. I'm going to select it, make it 4 feet from the edge. So now we've got nine panels and 1, 2, 3, 4 grids, right? And again, just always keep in your mind, the curtain wall is separate from the grid, and that is separate also from the panels. So now, as an illustration of kind of what they do, I can pick this panel, and I can replace it with a couple things. There's curtain wall panels that you can replace it with. That's a type of family that you load in. You can replace it with a wall, a different wall type. So like if I go here, I can pick this gray wall that surrounds the curtain wall. That's wall type 1. If I click that, it will replace that panel with the wall. And likewise, if I grab that panel again, I can even give it a different wall type. I can give it the interior wall type that's got chipboard on either side. Right, so you can replace it with a curtain wall family, a curtain wall panel family, a wall family. You can also put a window in there. You can also replace it with a door. So if you have our door library, it comes with curtain wall panel doors. So this library comes with curtain wall windows. So in this drop-down list, you'll see the walls, and then you'll start seeing the windows. And if I had doors loaded in, the doors would show up. If I had curtain wall panels loaded in, those would also show up. So for now, let's just change this to an awning window like that. And now you can see it's put the window in. So now that you know, those are like the very basics to understanding a curtain wall, and it can get more advanced. I'm not going to show you all the features of curtain wall and how to control everything. You probably really should watch a specific video on curtain walls and controlling them if you want to go really deep, because there's different ways of selecting the grids, because sometimes you don't want the grid to be continuous. And there's all these little tricks that you'll want to learn if you're going to use this a lot. But for the case of windows, you don't need to know that much. You just need to know how to make one and divide it and then change the panels and add mullions. So let's look at our example over here. I'm going to start hiding things so that you can kind of see how it's been put together. And we're going to reverse engineer it so that you understand what we're going to do. And then I'll show you step by step how to make the window. So here we are. There is, right here on either side, we have window trim. So here's the exterior window trim, here's the interior window trim. So each one of those is its separate family, is a family. So there's this family, and then on the outside, there's another family. And they're window families, but it's trim only. So that's a little bit different because all the other windows that you're going to be using in the library, when you load the window, it automatically brings the trim in as well. So the window, the opening, and the trim, they're all inside the family, and they all come in at once. With these custom families, or with the curtain walls, they're not going to do that because a curtain wall doesn't allow you to automatically put trim around it. So you have to manually put the trim in place. So I'm going to hide that. And we'll talk about how to get that there later, a little bit later. So now once I remove that, you're going to see, if I get the window, that's a panel. So that's the panel of the curtain wall. If I click here, that's a mullion. And then if I hover and tab, you can see there's the line, that's the grid. And then if we want the whole wall, that looks like it could be the wall, but it's not. In fact, let's start. I'm going to grab the windows. Let's go in reverse. Let's unbuild this thing so that you can see. I'm going to get all of these windows, which are panels, and I'm going to change them from being a window back to glass. So that's more what it looked like from the beginning. And let's do it with these panels here. Let's change them to glass. All right. Let me show you a faster way. Let's tab select one panel, and I'm going to right click my mouse. And you see how it says select panels along vertical grid, along horizontal grid, or all the panels on the host. I'm just going to select all the panels so I don't have to individually keep tab selecting. And then it says multiple families selected, right? Because some is glass and some are windows. I'm just going to change them all to glass. So now what we're left with is the curtain wall with all the panels back to glass, and it has mullions. So we didn't talk about mullions because I only did the grids. Once you have grids, the grids automatically make new panels. And then once you have the grids, you can host mullions onto the grids. So if you go back to the architecture tab and you hit the mullion button, you can select the grids and it will put mullions on those grid lines. And you can do it on the edges as well. We're not going to do the edges for windows. We're just going to do in between the windows, but that's what that looks like. So that's all we're seeing here are those mullions. So I'm also going to tab select a mullion. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to select mullions, and then I'm going to do, let's see, all the mullions on the host, which is the curtain wall. So that selects all the grids, or all the mullions, and I'm going to delete the mullions. So now we're just left with the panels, and then if I tab select, I can get the grid. So I'm just going to delete the grid, and I'm going to delete that grid, and I'm going to tab select that grid. I'm going to right select. And it doesn't look like it lets me mass select the grids, so we're going to have to do these one by one. I'm just going to do this. And then I'm going to filter, and I'm going to get curtain wall grids, select those, and then I'm going to delete them. Okay, so now it's gotten more simple. Now you can see there's a curtain wall, which is this big dotted line, and it's nested, or it's inside of this wall, the host wall. So I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that curtain wall, and I'm going to delete it. Why doesn't it want to delete? There we go. Okay, so now I'm left with a hole. Now the hole isn't actually just a hole in the wall. The hole is actually it's a window family. And the reason you do this is so that you can schedule this window properly later. And I will get into that in the scheduling video. For now, just trust me, the best thing to do, in my example here, I just drew the curtain wall inside of the wall and let it cut it out automatically. But I am going to suggest when you do this, I think you should select your curtain wall, edit the type, and tell it not to automatically embed. Now this one has already embedded itself, so it didn't unembed. But now when I draw a new one, I'm going to delete this one. When I draw a new curtain wall inside of the wall, it's going to do like it did before the first time, and it's not going to cut the hole out for you. I think you should manually cut the hole out yourself, only because of how it'll make life easier for you when you create the schedule. If you're not creating a window schedule, or you don't schedule all your windows or something, then you don't have to do this step. But all this is and this is again another hard thing to select. So that's the wall. So I need to tab select until I get the window. So this is just an opening, a non-cased window opening. So if I look over here, it's the window opening. If I look over here at our standard window types, it's this one. Do you see how there's just an opening that's a window type? That's all I've done. I've placed that window inside of that wall. So I'm going to select it if I can get it. There we go. I'm going to delete it. And now we're back to the beginning. So I'm going to show you how to create this window from scratch, but I wanted to reverse that all so that you understood what we were about to try to undertake. Okay, so let's say we're in a plan view in level 1. You've got your house and you've got this custom window that you're wanting to make. It's right here. Oh, you know what else I need to do? I hid the trim pieces, so we're going to delete the trim. So now we're back at square one. So the first thing you'll probably know is what size opening you want. That's the most basic. So we're going to go to the window command, and I'm going to pick that opening, just that plain opening. So I'm going to type in open, and I'm going to find the rectangular opening. And by default, you're only going to have a 3 foot wide by 5 foot tall opening. So for now, I'm just going to place that, and then we can look at it in 3D. So here's your opening, and it's right on the floor. There's no sill height. So let's put it 2.5 feet off the floor. Get that off the floor. And then it's also not the right size, right? We're trying to make a big custom window. So we want our window to be 6 feet wide by 11 feet tall, or let's just do 6 feet wide. Well, let's just make it that we can be whatever we want. So I'm going to edit the type, and I'm going to duplicate it, because we're just trying to make a big opening in the wall. So let's say we want it 7 feet wide, 12 feet tall. So I duplicated that window and I'm giving it a new name. So now you can see up here, the name's changed, but the actual size of the window hasn't. So the width needs to be 7 and the height needs to be 12. And we'll click OK. It'll create our new opening type, and it goes above the wall. So let's just put that a foot above the ground. I'm going to delete this text. So now we got this big wall opening. And now the next thing we want to do is fill it with curtain wall. So to do that, I'm going to go back to level 1. I'm going to use the wall command, and I'm going to select curtain wall. And I'm just going to draw from one side of the opening to the other. And it's going to tell me the walls are overlapping, and that's okay. So now in plan view, it looks right, but in elevation or 3D, it's not going to quite be right. So we know it needs to be a foot off the ground, and it needs to go up 12 feet from there. So we're just going to come over here. We're going to keep that wall selected. We're going to come over here, and it's constrained to level 1, and it has a 0 offset. We're going to make that a 1 foot offset. It'll push it up. So now the bottom is aligning. That's good. And now we need the top to go exactly 12 feet. So it's unconnected 10 feet. So let's just change that to 12. And now we have glass filling in the window opening. Okay, now that we've done that, let's go over some items that you might be running into. If you're following along, you're going to run into some problems that maybe I'm not running into. When you look at your curtain wall, your glass, do you see how if I tab select the panel, this is the glass panel, and it's running right in the center of the wall. If I highlight the wall, which are these dotted lines, you can see the center line of the wall runs down the center of the glass. Yours, depending on what your template was, how your template was set up, may not be the same. Yours may look different. So I'm going to tab select until I get the panel itself. And I'm going to edit the panel. And what often happens, I think most Revit setups have this offset by default. So I'm going to show you that. So now this is most likely what yours looks like. There, if you click on the wall, you can see the center of the wall is different than the center of the glass. The way I've set up these windows is you'll want the center of the glass to be the center line of your wall. Let me think if that's true. You know what? That's not necessarily true. I think the windows will be sent. The windows will work no matter what. So this may not be that critical, but if yours looks different from mine, just know if you want it to look like mine, you can tab select the panel. You're going to edit this type, and you're going to remove the offset. You're going to set it to 0, and that should pull your glass back into the center of the wall. Okay, so it should look like that now. Now we just got to decide how we want to divide this up. Let's go to Architecture tab, go to the curtain grid, and I'm just going to click that button. And let's do 2 columns. And maybe we do 4 rows. Let's do 2 feet, 4.5. Let's do, well, you know, if it's not that important, I'm just going to click, and then we can fidget with this now. Maybe we only want that 3 feet, and we want this one 2 feet. And it's that bottom row that we want really big, right? Okay, so now we have the skeleton of our new custom window. Now the next goal is to put mullions in between the windows. And I'm not going to put mullions on the border because the window frames of the windows should connect to the framing, and it's just in between the windows that we'll want mullions for support. So we're going to support in between these windows now by placing mullions. So up here, there's the mullion command. And again, depending on what your template is like, your mullions may look different, or you may not have the same mullions as me. So I'm going to place these mullions real quickly by clicking on the grids, and then I'm going to show you how to edit them so that you know. Okay, so here's our mullions. I just clicked, I put them in place. If I look in plan, you can see the mullions, the way I have my mullions set up, one edge is on the middle of the wall, and then the rest of the depth goes away from the center of the wall. Yours probably won't look like that. So let's learn how to make a custom mullion. So click on the mullion, you're going to edit its type, and let me reset this to what it will probably look like for you. I can't remember the default sizes, but let's say it's 6 inches. Okay, so most likely your mullions, when you place them, look something like that. They're centering, the depth of the mullion is centered on the wall, and then the width is just whatever width your Revit template has inside of it. So we're going to take control of this a little bit better. We're going to click on the mullion, we're going to edit it, and you can duplicate it and make a new one, or you can rename it and make your own custom one. So we're going to make ours custom. So the first thing you're going to want to mess with, before you mess with the angle or the offset, you'll just want to do the thickness. The thickness controls how deep the whole mullion is from here to there. So I'm just going to make mine the same depth as the standard. Like my window frames come in at 4 inches deep. So let's make these 5. Let's make these just slightly deeper than the windows themselves so that when we build the window, you'll be able to see what's what. So we're going to set that at 5. You can change the material of the mullion to whatever you want. It can be black painted metal, it can be aluminum, whatever. Most likely you're going to match this later with the doors, or the windows, I mean. And I think all my windows by default are just white paint. So that's what I'll leave that material as white paint. And then this dimension, these 2 dimensions build up the width of the mullion. So from here to here is this plus that. So do you see how this is 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches? So if you add those 2 together, that's 3 inches. So from here to here, that is a 3-inch wide mullion. You're telling it what percentage to put on which, or what length to put on what side of the grid. So if you remember right, we put a grid here. There's a grid in the curtain wall, and it's just splitting the width evenly. It's putting 1.5 inches on this side of the grid and another 1.5 inches on the other side of the grid. But you can change that. So if I wanted 0 inches on one side and I wanted all 3 inches on the other, you can do 0 on side 1, on side 2, and 3 inches on side 1. So if I hit apply, it switched it. It's hard to see in plan what it's doing, so we can look at an elevation. So you're only going to see this if you can select the curtain grid. Do you see that blue line right here? Do you see how it's to one side of the curtain, the mullion? Let's change the mullion so it's more apparent what's going on. Let's put 3 inches on both sides now. So now the mullions will be 6 inches wide and centered on the grid line. So now when I select the grid lines, do you see how it's running down the center? The mullion is centered on the grid line. So now we could do uneven, we could do 1 inch and 3 inches. So let's try that. So it'll be a 4-inch wide mullion, but it's not even across the grid line. Do you see now how the grid line is off to one, or the mullion is, not evenly split across the grid line? Okay, so let's finish making our custom mullion. We want the width of our mullion to be 2 inches total, let's say. So we're going to do 1 inch on side 2 and another inch on side 1. So the total is 2 inches wide total, and it's going to be 5 inches deep, and we'll click OK. So now they're looking good, and if we look in floor plan, they look pretty good in floor plan, and we'll keep them like this for now, because I'll show you. I know that there's going to be an issue, but I'll show you how to overcome that in a second. So now we've got the skeleton of our window, we've got our mullions, we've got the hole cut out, like everything's going good. Now we just need to start putting windows in this thing. So I'm going to go into the elevation, and I'm going to start selecting. I'm going to tab select until I get the panel. I'm going to tab select again, and then I'm going to hold Control so that I can add it to my selection. And then here, I'm going to tab again, keep tabbing till I get the panel. So now I have 3 panels. And if I go over here, I'm going to replace them with, let's just replace them with some awning windows. So right here, you see how it says traditional curtain window awning. So I'm just going to replace it with the awning window. You will have already had to load in the curtain wall windows. If they're not loaded in, you're going to have to go load them. Okay, so now we've got 3 awnings, and maybe for these 3 panels, we want those just to be fixed windows. So we'll grab those panels, and we're going to scroll down until it says fixed and click OK. So the funny thing about placing families inside of a curtain wall is you'll notice you don't get to pick, if I hit the type parameters, you don't get to pick the overall width and height of the window. You can pick the dimensions of things like the window frame, the rail width, the frame depth. You can control those pieces, but the overall width and height isn't within your control. The way you determine the size of a curtain wall window is by moving the grids back and forth. So all of these are the same window type. Like this is all 3 the same windows. Even if I change this to be like, maybe I move this 2 inches, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. Maybe we want the middle column to be bigger. Do you see how it stretches the window? So these are all 3 of these are the same window family, which normally if a window is a different size, you have to make a new type. That's not the same for curtain wall families. They just inherit the size of the panel that they're replacing. All right, so let's get this one, let's get this row. I'm gonna once I've selected the panel, I'm gonna right select it and select panels along horizontal grid, and that will get me all 3. So you don't have to keep tab selecting and adding it to your selection if you don't want to. So we'll change this to, what do we want these ones to be? These ones could be hoppers. Let's just make them a hopper window. Okay, so now we have 3 hoppers. And then this last row, I'm going to tab select, get the panel, right select, select panels along horizontal grid, and let's actually make them a casement window. So 3 casement windows. And in fact, this one I actually want to be fixed. So maybe we make that one fixed. And then this one needs to be flipped. So if you hit the space bar, it will flip the window the other direction. So now we've got awnings, we've got fixed windows, we've got hoppers, and we've got casement windows. Now, things are looking good. If we look in 3D, let's see how it looks. So there's a little bit of a problem here because the windows are popping out. They're popping out the wrong way, especially compared to the mullions. So something's going on here that we need to fix. So let's look at how we fix that. And if we look at it in floor plan, you can also see here are the actual window frames, and then here's the mullions. And you can also see where they're placed in the wall. So let's take care of one thing at a time. Let's get the mullions. What we really want is we want the outside of the windows. So if you look at this, this would be the exterior side and this would be the interior side. So I think we'd want the exterior side of the windows to line up with the mullions. So we can do it two ways. We can either get the mullions to be pushed back to the center line of the wall, because if we select the whole wall, do you see what's happening? The exterior side of the windows is the center line of the wall. So we can either push this mullion back so that its face is on the center line of the wall, or we can try to offset all of these panels, each one, so that it's flush with the mullion. It's easier to change the mullion. So that's how we're going to do it. It'll be faster. So I'm going to select this mullion and hit edit type. And we know that the thickness is 5 inches. And it automatically splits that 5 inches along the center line of the wall. So it's put 2.5 inches on one side of the wall and another 2.5 inches on the other side of the wall. So we don't want that. So we're going to use this offset, and we're going to offset it by half the thickness here. So we're just going to say 2.5 inches. And I don't know if it needs to go in the negative direction or positive direction. I'm just going to make the offset amount correct and see what happens. So I'm going to apply. Oh, and do you see it slid it the wrong direction? So it took this edge and moved it here. So that's opposite of what we need. So that means we need to do a negative offset and hit apply. And now the exterior side of the window is in line with the mullion. Okay, so we're going to call that good. And that changed all of the mullions to do the same thing. So now from the exterior side, you can see they're all flush. And then on the interior side, the mullions stick out just a little bit more than the frames of the windows on the interior side, which could be how the windows are built, or maybe everything's flush, but you now know how to change the depth of the mullion to correct that. Okay, so what else is wrong now? It seems like maybe the whole window assembly is not in the right spot within the depth of the wall. So let's go back to level 1. And this is the easiest part to fix. You just select the window, or the curtain wall. So that's what this big dotted line is. That's the wall. And now we're just going to move it to where we want it in the wall. So if we just want it flush with the exterior, we're going to take that center and we're going to put it there. So now if we look at it in 3D, this is more in alignment of how you would build it. Maybe they flush it with the outside of the house, and then on the inside, you have a seal around the whole thing. Or if you wanted to, we can go back to elevation. You can also just pick the whole window or the whole curtain wall, and maybe you want it inset, 1 inch. So then we can just move it inset 1 inch. So now if you look on the exterior side, it's 1 inch from the exterior side, and then it's also offset from the interior side. Right, so this is more up to you how you want to place the window inside the wall, but it's really easy to move it within the wall. You just select the curtain wall and move it in or out. Okay, we've almost got a complete window. And I promise once you've had practice, it doesn't take near this long. You can probably do this in like 5 minutes and create a completely custom window once you kind of have mastered these concepts. Okay, the last thing we need is to add some casing around the wall and then some trim pieces on the interior and exterior. So to do that, we're just going to load in some trim families. Now, if you watched the first video, I showed you the structure of your download file, and I showed you that there is a file called there's a folder called trim families. And if you open that up, you'll see all of the trim styles that came with your download. So for us, let's just load in, let's say it's a brick exterior. So I'm gonna drag these trim families in. There's the brick one, okay. And for the interior, whoops, let me go back. For the interior, let's do Greek Revival number 3, and we'll just drag and drop that into our project. Okay, so now we have loaded those 2 trim families in the project, and now we just need to host them to we need to place them on our wall. So for this, you're going to use the window command because they are window families, even though they're not truly a window. So window command, and you can see it's trying to place the Greek revival one. So we'll put that on this side. Where did I click that? That's right there. Okay. And it's not hosted to the wall like a typical window family is, right? And let's do another window family, and we'll change this to our brick, and we'll place it here. Okay, so I'm going to go to, I think the first thing we need to do is make sure those trims are the right size. So if you click on a trim, you can change its width, height, all of these are instance parameters. So you don't have to keep creating new trim types for every size window. You can just on the fly edit the width and height. So if you remember right, how big is our opening here? Let me try to select our opening. Our opening is 7 feet wide by 12 feet tall. So that's what we're going to do with this trim. It's going to be 7 feet wide and 12 feet tall. Great. And we can offset it 1 foot from level 1. So now it's the right size and it's the right height off the ground. Let's do the same thing with the brick. I'm going to hit the spacebar a couple times to rotate it so that it's facing the right direction. And I'm going to do the same thing here. 7 feet wide, 12 feet tall, and 1 foot off the ground. There we go. Now, if you click on the trim, they have all the same options that you're used to on our standard windows, but it's just specific to the trim. We can do our casing depth. So you can see the trim of the window automatically has the casing in it, and you can shut that off if you want. So if we select the trim and I say show interior casing, I can click that and it will turn the casing off, and you can just put trim. But we need the casing, so we're going to turn the casing on. And in the back, we also inset it 1 inch, if I remember right. So we're going to turn the casing on, and we know we inset it 1 inch, so you can see the casing's too deep. So if we go down here, it says casing depth. Let's just do 1 inch, and that'll reduce it. And then on this one, we don't know how deep it needs to be, so we're going to go to our level and measure. It needs to be 3 inches, and you see on the exterior side, it's 1 inch. So for this one, we're going to click, and we're going to say casing depth is 3 inches. Now we can move these into place. All I need to do is I'm going to pick the center line and line it up on the center line of that window. Oh, and you can see I need to move it back to the surface of the wall, like that. And then we're going to move this to the center, and then we're going to move it back flush with the wall. So now, when we look, we have our final window. It's got the mullions, it's got the casing, it's got the trim, and it works for both the interior and exterior side. Now there's a little more work to do. We want to change the materials of everything. Like this should be a brick wall on the exterior. The mullions will need to change materials, all of that. But that is how you create a custom window using curtain walls. And so if you have a really huge staircase, maybe it's a 3-story house and there's a cool staircase that goes up the whole thing, you could have a 2-story or 3-story window custom made, and each panel of the window, some could be operable, some could be fixed. You can control all the different mullions in each one differently. So like I can do that. Like you could get a tighter grid on all of these. All of the same parameters you have for the other windows still exist here, but now you got to create your own window that fits your project. All right, hopefully that helps and wasn't too confusing. I know it's a lot to digest. If you didn't get everything, watch it again, slow it down, pause, follow along. But once you make this second nature and you understand curtain walls, this is a very powerful tool combined with our families to create really good custom windows.